When the path of life suddenly fractures beneath your feet, the first response of the human heart is often to ask, why is this happening to me? The mind trembles, the spirit resists. And yet, in the wisdom of ancient teachings, we are reminded again and again that breaking is not always the end. It is not always a punishment. It is a process, a refinement, a way of being shaped into something more enduring than before. Think of a sword. Before it gleams with sharpness, before it can cut with precision, it is first placed into the fire. The heat is unbearable. The metal bends, it weakens, it loses its original form. To an untrained eye, it might seem that the fire is destroying the steel. But in truth, the fire is not punishing the metal. It is purifying it, drawing out its impurities, preparing it for strength it could not hold in its natural state. So, it is with the human soul. The moments when you feel broken, when life seems to press you down until nothing is left, these are not always punishments. They are refinements. The breaking makes you pliable. It removes the hardness, the resistance, the unnecessary pride that clings to the untested heart. Only in breaking can the deeper purpose of your life be drawn out. Just as gold only reveals its true shine when it passes through the fire, we are taught to avoid pain, to run from suffering, to pray for a life without obstacles. But a life without breaking is a life that remains unshaped. A potter does not place soft clay on the wheel and leave it untouched. He presses his hands firmly against it. He spins it until it loses its old shape. At times, the clay collapses. At times, the vessel caves inward. But the potter does not throw the clay away. He simply begins again, pressing, reshaping, refining, until the vessel finally reflects the vision he held from the beginning. The breaking was never punishment. It was the only way to make the clay useful. Breaking also reveals what is inside. When a seed is buried in the soil, its shell must first split open for life to emerge. To the seed, this feels like death, like loss, like destruction. But what looks like breaking is the very process by which it fulfills its purpose. Without the breaking, no growth. Without the splitting, no roots, no stem, no fruit. In human life, the same law applies. The breaking does not destroy the potential, it awakens it. But in the moment of breaking, the mind cannot see this clearly. All it feels is the loss, the pain, the silence. Yet if you allow the process to unfold, you will look back and see that the breaking carved out space inside you. Space for patience. Space for humility, space for compassion. The world around you may interpret your breaking as weakness. They may say, you have failed, you have lost. But the truth is hidden from their eyes. What looks like failure is often the sacred ground of transformation. The very pressure that bends you also teaches you to stand differently. The very pain that empties you also makes you ready to be filled in a new way. Breaking is a sacred teacher. It strips away the illusions we hold about ourselves, illusions of control, of certainty, of self-sufficiency. When those illusions fall, when you are left exposed, it is then that the deeper strength has the chance to rise. The breaking humbles, but humility is not humiliation. Humility is alignment. It is the quiet recognition that you are being reshaped by something greater than your own will. The danger is when the human heart misinterprets breaking as abandonment. In those moments, bitterness can take root. One can believe, I am being punished. I am being forsaken. But this is a shallow reading of the experience. The greater truth is that refinement often requires removal of what you once thought was permanent, removal of what you once clung to for safety, removal of what you thought defined you. The breaking detaches you from false securities so that your life can be grounded in something deeper, something unshakable. Consider the bamboo. When the storm comes, the tall trees are ripped from their roots, the rigid branches are broken off. But the bamboo bends. It bows low, it sways with the wind, and though it seems defeated, it rises again when the storm passes. Its breaking is not the end, it is survival through surrender. Its flexibility is its strength. The same is true of the human spirit. When rigid identities and fragile egos are broken down, what remains is pliability, the capacity to adapt, to endure, to grow in unexpected directions. Breaking also teaches gratitude. Without pain, joy is often taken for granted. Without hunger, fullness is rarely appreciated. When life has broken you and you later stand again, the smallest blessings take on new significance. A sunrise, a breath, the voice of a friend, the warmth of silence. They are no longer overlooked. The breaking sensitizes the soul, making it more awake to the beauty that was always present, but hidden behind layers of distraction. In this way, breaking is a doorway, not a doorway to despair, but to deeper seeing. The shattered pieces of life, when rearranged, form patterns that could not have existed otherwise. Like a mosaic, the beauty is revealed not in perfection, but in the careful arrangement of what was once broken. So when the breaking comes, resist the temptation to call it punishment. Resist the thought that it is meaningless. Instead, understand that refinement is taking place even when it feels like loss. The fire does not destroy the metal, it forges it. The wheel does not ruin the clay, it shapes it. The storm does not kill the bamboo, it strengthens its roots. In a world that glorifies power, dominance, and control, weakness is often misunderstood. People are taught from a young age to hide their vulnerabilities, to mask their fears, to silence their tears. They are told that strength means to never bend, never break, never falter. Yet, those who walk the path of deep wisdom know that this is an illusion. True strength is not forged by hiding weakness. True strength is revealed through weakness. When the body grows tired, when the mind reaches its limit, when the soul feels heavy with burdens, this is when the essence of resilience awakens. A warrior does not discover his endurance on a calm morning. He discovers it when the night is long, when his muscles shake, when doubt whispers that he cannot continue. The very moment of weakness is the place where hidden reservoirs of strength reveal themselves. Without weakness, the strength would remain concealed. Think of the mountain. To those who admire its majesty, it looks unshakable. Yet look closer at its slopes and you will see the scars of erosion, the cracks carved by water, the broken rocks that have fallen away. The mountain is not strong because it is untouched. It is strong because it has endured countless storms, countless winters, countless fires. Its scars are not signs of weakness, but signs of what it has carried and survived. Strength is revealed not in the absence of weakness, but in the persistence that grows from it. Weakness humbles us, and humility is a gate to wisdom. When a person feels unbreakable, untouchable, they cannot grow. Pride blinds the eyes and deafens the ears. But when weakness visits, when the heart trembles and the knees bend, suddenly the truth is felt that no one stands alone, that no one is without limits, that no one is immune to pain. This realization does not diminish the human being, it deepens them. Weakness softens the heart, teaching compassion for oneself and for others who suffer. Consider the tree that grows in harsh soil. Its branches may appear fragile, its leaves thin, its trunk twisted by the wind. From the outside, it looks weak. But dig beneath the surface, and you will discover roots that run deep, roots that search tirelessly for water, roots that cling to rocks with unyielding persistence. The apparent weakness above the ground is the very reason the unseen strength beneath the ground exists. Without the struggle, the roots would never grow deep. Without the harsh conditions, the tree would never discover the hidden power within its foundation. So it is with the human soul. Weakness becomes the environment in which inner strength is cultivated. When tears fall, when nights feel endless, when prayers seem unanswered, this is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of refining. The strength that emerges from such places is not loud, not boastful, not aggressive. It is quiet, steady, unshakable. It is the strength of endurance, the strength of patience, the strength of one who has walked through the valley of shadows and still chooses to rise with the morning light. It is easy to confuse strength with hardness, but a stone that never bends, that resists every touch, eventually cracks. Real strength is more like water. Water appears weak, soft, yielding. You can put your hand through it. You cannot grasp it. And yet, over time, water carves valleys into mountains. It shapes landscapes. It wears down stone. The very quality that makes water seem weak is what makes it unstoppable. In the same way, the human being who embraces weakness, who learns to flow through suffering rather than resist it, discovers a strength that cannot be broken. Weakness also reveals where strength is needed. When you fall, when you stumble, when you realize your own limits, you begin to see more clearly what must be cultivated. The person who believes they are already strong stops training, stops learning, stops growing. But the person who feels their weakness is the one who continues the practice, who sharpens discipline, who develops resilience. Weakness is not the opposite of strength. It is the teacher that guides you toward it. The ancient masters never feared weakness. They welcomed it because it stripped away illusion. In the training halls, the body was pushed to exhaustion, not to break the spirit, but to reveal the hidden capacity within. When the student could no longer lift his arms, when his legs could no longer carry him, and yet he still discovered a single breath, a single step, a single strike. That moment was the unveiling of true strength. Without exhaustion, without weakness, this strength would never come forth. Weakness also creates connection. When one dares to reveal their fragility, others see themselves reflected in it. Shared weakness becomes a bridge, a reminder that humanity is not about perfection, but about endurance, compassion, and growth. In showing weakness, one inspires others, not because they are flawless, but because they keep walking despite their flaws. This is strength in its most authentic form. The courage to continue when nothing inside you feels capable of continuing. When the storm comes, the bird with broken wings still attempts to fly. Its flight is not graceful, its movement not perfect, but its will becomes visible. And it is in the trembling of its wings that true strength shines, not because it never fell, but because it continues to rise again and again. Strength is not revealed in the absence of wounds. It is revealed in the decision to move forward with wounds still open. And so weakness is not a curse. It is the soil in which endurance grows. It is the mirror that reflects the limits of human power while unveiling the depth of spiritual strength. It is the shadow that allows light to be recognized. Without weakness, strength would remain untested, unseen, unrealized. The most powerful strength is not the one that has never faltered, but the one that has faltered, fallen, and yet chooses to rise again with greater clarity, greater humility, and greater endurance. When life begins to fracture, when everything you once depended on slips away like sand between your fingers, there is a silence that often follows. It is not the peaceful silence of a quiet morning or the comforting silence of a gentle meditation. It is a heavy silence, one that presses against your chest and lingers in the air like a question without an answer. It is the silence in the breaking. In these moments, prayers may rise, yet no response seems to return. The heart calls out, but the heavens appear still. You wait for a sign, a voice, a clear direction, and yet there is nothing, only silence. And this silence is perhaps the most difficult trial of all, because the human mind longs for certainty, for clarity, for something to hold on to. But in the silence of breaking, there is no hand to grasp, no immediate reassurance, only emptiness. And yet silence itself is a language. It is a teacher, though one that speaks without words. When the universe withholds sound, when it does not rush to answer your cries, it is not always abandonment. More often, it is alignment. The silence is not meant to punish, but to make you listen more deeply, not outwardly, but inwardly. For as long as external voices fill the space, you may ignore the whisper within. Only when the noise falls away can the inner voice emerge. Imagine the forest. In the middle of the storm, branches snap, trees fall, the wind howls. The noise of breaking fills the air. But after the storm passes, what remains is silence. And in that silence, the forest breathes, the soil absorbs water, seeds quietly take root, new life begins beneath the surface. What seems like death and emptiness on the outside is, in truth, the beginning of renewal on the inside. Silence is not empty, it is full of unseen activity. In the breaking of human life, silence functions in the same way. When relationships end, when dreams collapse, when health weakens, when certainty disappears, silence stretches across the landscape of the soul. It feels as though nothing is happening, as though the world has stopped moving. But beneath that silence, deep processes are unfolding. Strength is being cultivated, patience is being taught, new seeds are being planted in the soil of the heart. The silence is not absence, it is preparation. Most people fear silence because it confronts them with themselves. In the noise of life, distractions keep pain at bay. The busyness of schedules, the comfort of conversations, the noise of entertainment, all of these are shields against what lies within. But when breaking happens and silence descends, those shields are stripped away. You are left alone with yourself, with your wounds, with your fears. It is in this confrontation that transformation begins. For only when you see yourself without distraction can you truly begin to understand what needs to be healed, what needs to be released, what needs to be embraced. The silence of breaking also teaches surrender. When no answer comes, when no clear path is shown, the only choice left is to let go of control. This is not a passive resignation, but an active trust, a recognition that not all answers come immediately, that not all growth is visible, that not all strength is loud. In the silence, you learn to release the need for certainty and begin to rest in the rhythm of patience. Consider the cocoon of a caterpillar. From the outside, it appears silent, lifeless, unmoving. There is no sign of progress, no evidence of change. But within that stillness, transformation is at work. The breaking down of what once was, the forming of what will be, all of this unfolds in silence. If you were to cut open the cocoon to look for progress, you would destroy the very process that leads to flight. In the same way, when life encloses you in silence, it is not because nothing is happening. It is because everything essential is happening beneath the surface, where the eyes cannot see and the ears cannot hear. Silence also magnifies awareness. When words are absent, you begin to notice the subtler things, the beating of your own heart, the rhythm of your breath, the weight of your thoughts, the flow of your emotions. In the breaking, silence gives you the chance to notice what you had ignored when life was full of noise. It reveals the clutter you have carried, the attachments you have clung to, the illusions you have believed. In its quiet way, silence becomes a mirror, showing you truths you would not otherwise face. The silence of breaking is not only an external condition, but an inner state. There are times when even the most familiar practices, meditation, prayer, reflection, feel empty. You sit in stillness, and instead of peace you feel distance. You speak words of hope, but they echo back to you unanswered. This inner silence can feel unbearable, yet even this is not without purpose. For it teaches that strength is not dependent on constant affirmation, but on the endurance of faith when nothing is felt, when nothing is seen, when nothing is heard. When you stand in silence, you discover that survival does not come from immediate answers, but from learning to endure uncertainty. And in this endurance, you begin to see that silence itself is not lifeless. It is alive, rich with hidden lessons, filled with unseen growth. The silence of breaking is the soil of transformation, the shadow in which roots deepen, the pause in which strength gathers itself before rising again. Character is not inherited. It is not something handed down like a gift that arrives fully formed. Character is shaped, and the shaping of character is rarely gentle. It is carved by trial, pressed by discipline, molded by loss, and tempered by responsibility. What people admire in another, the calmness in difficulty, the patience in delay, the resilience in suffering, none of these arrive by accident. They are formed over time through the shaping of character. When you observe a statue carved from stone, you may admire the details, the smoothness of the edges, the beauty of the form. But what is often forgotten is the sound of the chisel striking, again and again, removing what does not belong. The stone does not choose which parts are cut away. It simply endures. And with every strike, a new shape begins to appear. So it is with human life. The difficulties, the disappointments, the failures, and the struggles are the chisel strokes. They cut away arrogance, they smooth down impatience, they carve out compassion, they refine humility. Without the carving, the raw stone remains shapeless. Without the trials, the person remains unformed. In the shaping of character, suffering is not wasted. Every tear becomes a teacher. Every moment of waiting becomes a lesson. Every rejection becomes a redirection. When the heart is broken, it learns empathy. When the mind is stretched, it learns wisdom. When the body is weakened, it learns endurance. The shaping is not comfortable, but it is necessary. A vessel that is never pressed cannot hold water. A path that is never tested cannot guide others. A person whose character is never shaped cannot carry responsibility without breaking beneath its weight. Patience is one of the first qualities shaped in this process. People naturally desire speed. They want results immediately, answers instantly, change without delay. But life does not work in this way. Growth comes slowly, like a tree pushing its roots deeper year after year. Patience is not learned in times of ease, but in seasons of waiting. When doors do not open, when prayers seem unanswered, when progress feels invisible. In these times, patience is shaped, and once patience is shaped, the character begins to hold peace even in the presence of uncertainty. Humility is another quality born through shaping. When life allows you to succeed easily, pride can grow unnoticed. You begin to believe that you are untouchable, that your own strength is sufficient. But when failure arrives, when weakness is exposed, when plans collapse, humility begins to take shape. Humility is not the lowering of worth, it is the recognition of limits. It is the understanding that strength is not self-contained but connected to something greater. It is through the breaking of pride that the shaping of humility occurs, and with humility comes wisdom, because a humble heart is open to learn what a proud heart refuses to hear. Compassion also takes form through hardship. Those who have never been broken often find it easy to judge the brokenness of others. They speak quickly, dismissively, because they have not tasted pain themselves. But those who have walked through valleys of sorrow, those who have felt the weight of loneliness, those who have been humbled by failure, these people carry a different tone. Their words are softer, their actions kinder, their presence healing. Why? Because character has been shaped by suffering. Compassion is born in the heart that has learned how it feels to bleed. And because of this, it becomes careful not to wound others needlessly. Discipline is another product of shaping. Discipline is forged in the small choices, repeated again and again, often without recognition. It is formed when you wake early to train while others sleep, when you hold to your values while others compromise, when you continue the practice even when no results are visible. Discipline is not glamorous, but it is the spine of character. Without it, intentions collapse. With it, the character is steady, unmoved by temptation, unshaken by distraction. Discipline is the shaping tool that transforms desire into action, and action into habit, and habit into destiny. And there is also resilience, the ability to rise again after being knocked down. Resilience is not shaped in times of victory, but in times of defeat. When you fail and stand again, when you are rejected but keep moving forward, when you are exhausted, yet take another step. This is how resilience is carved into the soul. The shaping of resilience makes a person unshakable, not because they never fall, but because they never remain on the ground. Character is shaped not in a single moment, but across a lifetime. Each season brings its own chisel. Youth brings impatience, teaching the need for patience. Success brings pride, teaching the need for humility. Failure brings despair, teaching the need for endurance. Pain brings isolation, teaching the need for compassion. With every stroke, with every press, with every fire, the character takes clearer form. It is important to remember that the shaping of character is not meant to make life easier, but to make you able to endure life as it is. The storms will still come. The losses will still arrive. The world will still be filled with uncertainty. But the person whose character has been shaped can stand in the middle of it without collapsing. They have learned patience, so they do not rush. They have learned humility, so they do not boast. They have learned compassion, so they do not wound. They have learned discipline, so they do not falter. They have learned resilience, so they do not remain fallen. The shaping of character is slow, often unnoticed, often misunderstood. People may look at your breaking and believe it is destruction, but what is actually happening is formation. Like the sculptor who sees the figure hidden within the stone long before it appears, life sees within you what you cannot yet see. Every strike, every cut, every fire, every storm is removing what does not belong until the essence of who you are meant to be slowly comes into view. Responsibility is not a light garment. It is a mantle that presses upon the shoulders, heavy and demanding, shaping the way one walks, the way one stands, the way one thinks. To carry responsibility is to accept weight, and this weight is never comfortable. It demands strength, but it also reveals strength. Those who are chosen for greater purposes are not chosen for ease, they are chosen for endurance, for the capacity to bear what others are unwilling or unable to carry. Many desire the appearance of responsibility, the recognition, the respect, the influence it seems to offer, but few understand the cost. True responsibility is not glory, it is service. It is not about power over others, but about burden for others. To be given responsibility is to be trusted with weight, and weight will always press down. It presses on the mind, demanding clarity. It presses on the heart, demanding compassion. It presses on the will, demanding perseverance. Without weight, there is no growth. Without pressure, there is no shaping. The weight of responsibility is both the challenge and the refining fire. Consider the bridge that carries countless travelers across a river. From a distance, people admire its structure, its usefulness, its strength. But what makes the bridge admirable is not how it looks when empty, it is how it endures the constant weight of those who cross. The true measure of its worth is revealed only when it is tested by load. The same is true for human beings. When there is no weight, when life is free of demands, the measure of character remains hidden. But when the weight of responsibility rests upon the shoulders, then the true structure of the soul is revealed. The weight is heavy because responsibility requires sacrifice. To care for others means often denying yourself. To lead means walking ahead into places of uncertainty. To guide means carrying burdens that are not your own. The one who holds responsibility does not always have the luxury of choosing the lighter path. They must often walk the harder one, not because they desire it, but because others depend on their strength. And in this dependence, the weight grows heavier. But it is within this heaviness that strength is forged. Muscles do not grow without resistance, and the spirit does not expand without weight. Responsibility is also heavy because it is tied to accountability. To be responsible is to answer not only for yourself, but for the consequences of your choices upon others. The careless can move quickly, making decisions without thought, because no one depends on them. But the responsible must move carefully, with awareness, because their actions ripple outward. Each step matters. Each word carries weight. This awareness can feel like a burden, but it is also what creates wisdom. Responsibility slows the reckless, deepens the shallow, sobers the careless. There is also a hidden loneliness in responsibility. When weight rests on your shoulders, not everyone can share it with you. Others may not see the pressure you carry, the decisions you wrestle with in silence, the sacrifices you make unseen. Responsibility often isolates because it requires you to hold firm when others waver, to keep standing when others fall, to remain calm when others panic. This solitude is not a punishment, but adds to the heaviness. The weight is not always visible, but it is always felt. And yet the weight of responsibility is also what grants meaning. A life without responsibility may feel light, but it also remains shallow. When there is nothing to carry, nothing entrusted to you, there is also little purpose. It is responsibility that gives direction to strength, that turns potential into action, that transforms ability into service. Without responsibility, strength risks becoming self-indulgent. With responsibility, strength is harnessed for something greater than the self. The weight teaches that life is not only about what you gain, but about what you give. Think of the earth itself. It carries the weight of mountains, oceans, forests, and cities. This weight is immense, yet the earth does not collapse beneath it. Instead, it holds, it sustains, it supports life. In the same way, responsibility is the weight that holds together the structure of human purpose. Without it, the individual drifts aimlessly. With it, the individual becomes rooted, grounded, connected to something beyond their own desires. The weight of responsibility also protects. A person without responsibility may drift into recklessness, indulging in distractions without concern for consequence. But when responsibility rests upon the shoulders, it anchors the heart. It reminds you that your choices matter, that your time has value, that your energy must be guarded. The weight demands discipline, and this discipline shields against waste. Carrying responsibility requires strength, but not only physical or mental strength. It requires moral strength. The strength to remain honest when dishonesty would be easier, the strength to remain faithful when walking away would be simpler, the strength to endure when surrender seems tempting. These are the muscles built only beneath the weight of responsibility. They cannot be learned in ease, nor discovered in comfort. The paradox is that the weight which feels heavy also enlarges the capacity of the one who carries it. Over time, what once seemed unbearable becomes part of your strength. Just as a body grows stronger through carrying greater loads, the soul grows stronger through shouldering greater responsibilities. Each new burden expands endurance, deepens character, and stretches the ability to serve. The weight does not shrink, but the one who carries it grows larger, able to hold more, endure more, give more. And so the weight of responsibility remains one of life's greatest teachers. It does not flatter, it does not comfort, it does not offer ease, but it shapes endurance, discipline, compassion, and wisdom. It presses until the shallow collapses and the deep emerges. It humbles the proud and strengthens the humble. It transforms the individual from one who lives only for self into one who carries for many. Brokenness is a condition every human being encounters. No matter how strong one appears, no matter how carefully life is arranged, there will come a time when the structure cracks, when the heart shatters, when the mind feels scattered into fragments that no longer fit together. To be broken is to feel incomplete, to carry within you pieces that no longer align the way they once did. It is to walk through life carrying not only wounds but also the memory of what was lost. Yet brokenness is not the end of the story. The path from brokenness to wholeness is not a return to the way things were, but the discovery of something new, something deeper, something more complete than before. Wholeness is not the absence of scars, but the integration of them. It is not a return to unbroken innocence, but the wisdom that emerges after surviving the breaking. When a vessel falls and shatters, the first instinct is to see it as ruined. The fragments on the ground appear useless, incapable of being restored. But in the art of kintsugi, the broken vessel is not discarded. It is repaired with gold, the cracks filled with something precious, making the object more beautiful and valuable than it was before. Its worth is not in pretending it was never broken, but in revealing how the brokenness became the very source of its beauty. So it is with the human soul. Wholeness does not mean to erase the fractures, but to honor them, to allow them to become the very lines through which wisdom and compassion flow. Brokenness humbles. It brings the realization that life cannot always be controlled, that strength cannot always prevent loss, that certainty cannot always protect against change. In this humbling, the ego begins to dissolve, and in its place emerges the possibility of authenticity. Wholeness is not about becoming flawless, but about becoming true. To accept your brokenness is to acknowledge your humanity, and in that acceptance, a deeper wholeness begins to form. In the journey from brokenness to wholeness, there is always a time of waiting. The pieces do not fall back together instantly. Healing is slow, uneven, unpredictable. Some days you feel progress, other days you feel the weight of loss more than ever. But within this process, the soul is being rewoven. What was once fragmented begins to find new connections. What was once jagged begins to soften. This waiting, though painful, is necessary, for it allows the integration of lessons that cannot be rushed. Brokenness also opens the door to compassion. When you have never been broken, it is easy to dismiss the suffering of others. But when you have known what it means to lose, to hurt, to feel empty, then the pain of another is no longer foreign. You recognize yourself in their sorrow. You listen differently. You comfort differently. You carry an empathy that cannot be taught in theory. It is carved into you through lived experience. Wholeness is not only for yourself, it is the capacity to help others find their way through brokenness as well. Wholeness does not erase weakness. Instead, it transforms weakness into wisdom. A person who has been broken no longer fears falling in the same way because they know they can rise. They no longer cling to illusions of perfection because they have already faced imperfection and survived. They no longer hide their scars because they know scars can be sacred, signs of battles endured and lessons learned. This shift in perspective is what makes wholeness possible. It is not a return to naive strength, but the emergence of seasoned strength. Think of the tree struck by lightning. The scar remains the mark of fire visible for all to see. Yet the tree continues to grow, its branches stretching toward the sky, its roots digging deeper into the earth. The scar does not prevent growth, it becomes part of the tree's identity, a reminder of both fragility and resilience. Wholeness does not mean to grow without scars. It means to grow with them, to let them speak of survival, of transformation, of strength that endured the breaking. The path from brokenness to wholeness also requires surrender. When something is broken, the human impulse is to fix it quickly, to force it back into its old shape. But brokenness cannot be undone. The pieces will never fit together exactly as they did before. To cling to the past is to remain stuck in fragments. Wholeness emerges only when you allow the breaking to change you, when you release what cannot be restored and embrace the possibility of something new. This surrender is difficult, but it is the key to becoming whole. Wholeness is not a destination. It is a way of living with integrity. It is the decision to no longer deny the pain, to no longer hide the cracks, but to live openly, honestly, vulnerably. It is to stand with all your pieces, not as a puzzle desperately trying to match its old picture, but as a mosaic that forms a new image. One defined not by what was lost, but by what has been created in the aftermath. And so, brokenness is not the final word. It is the doorway. To walk through it is to encounter silence, humility, compassion, surrender, and transformation. What feels like the end is, in truth, the beginning of wholeness. What looks like ruin is, in truth, the raw material of renewal.